Protests are underway across Poland against the EU Migration Pact, the construction of so-called foreigners' integration centres in our country, and illegal migrants whom Donald Tusk's allies in Germany are sending to Poland. We see what is happening in the West and we want to live peacefully in our own country. Today in Radom, as in other Polish cities, residents protested against illegal migration to Poland. It is demanded of us citizens that we support people who are expected to do nothing. And this is a fundamental issue that no one is likely to agree with. Giving money from their hard-earned salaries to someone who does nothing. We express concern and fear for our families, children and grandchildren, so that what is happening in the streets in the West does not happen here. The Germans won't send us those who want to work honestly. They will only send those with whom they have a problem. This is the result of the migration policy of the EU hegemon Berlin, which has been sending us illegal migrants since the Tusk team took power in Poland. On the one hand, refugees coming to us in the east, and on the other hand, refugees sent back from the western border. We are in a trap, and that you can already officially read in the German media today was determined in secret meetings that took place in recent months. But the Polish government lied to us about it. Because the new German government, which is expected to take power from the 6th of May, announces a tightening of migration policies so as to get rid of even more unwanted migrants from its territory. Anyone who tries to enter Germany illegally must know that as of the 6th of May, there is an end to this at the German border. No one can apply for asylum in the country of their choice. According to European law, this must be done where one enters the European Union. This is almost never Germany. Some of these migrants, of course those who are suitable or willing to work, will be left in Germany, while all those whom the German economy does not want, or for security or social reasons wants to get rid of, Germany will send back with the information that they did not come to Germany directly after all. They can send back an immigrant without providing information about who that person is, whether the person poses any danger in Poland or not. Because Germany already realizes the failure of its migration policy initiated by Chancellor Angela Merkel, a policy the effects of which Europe is feeling today. All those who cross the Austrian or other borders, they want to go to Germany. Germany is the magnet that attracts them, mainly their social benefits, and that is the problem. Until Germany changes that, there will be an influx of these illegal migrants. For years, it has been apparent that crime in Europe has been increasing with the migration coming from the Middle East and Africa. Therefore, now others will have to help Berlin. Germany has made a problem for itself and wants to pass this problem on to the Polish people. We have such a brutal lie from Donald Tusk that it was during the Law and Justice government that lots of immigrants were allowed into Poland. Just compare how many attacks there were in Poland. There were none. And how many attacks there were in each of the Western countries. The Germans are masters when it comes to pulling hot potatoes out of the fire with someone else's hands, actually citing the Dublin Agreement. Germany wants to solve the trouble they have at home with illegal migration. This means even more so-called engineers from the Middle East and Africa will come to Poland. And what does the government headed by Donald Tusk say about this? We did a control check. It turns out that the government of Donald Tusk does not even know how many of these migrants Germany has been sending back recently, and on what terms. Because Germany, using the opportunity provided by the rules adopted with the Dublin Agreement, are sending back unwanted migrants to Poland. They will catch illegal migrants either abroad or outside the border who will come to the EU for asylum. They will lock them up in such integration centres and send them back to Poland, because as far as I know, other countries are refusing. In the meantime, Germany has reintroduced controls at its external borders. An adequate response to this insolence of the Germans, who closed the borders just after it was known that Donald Tusk would return to power, and thus they can practically smuggle illegal migrants into Poland with impunity, an adequate response should be the sealing and restoration of random controls on the border with the Germans on the Polish side. Instead of sealing the border, so-called integration centres for foreigners are being established in our country, a total of 49 centres located in former Polish provinces. Today we have a government that is the subcontractor of German policy. This is the policy that was announced by Donald Tusk and announced by Rafał Trzaskowski, saying that illegal immigrants in Poland are to be an insurance policy for Poland. Migrants from our western neighbour are to be sent first to the emerging centres for integration of foreigners, and from 2026, in addition to those who will come to Poland after the EU Migration Pact comes into force. This is a gigantic problem that we will have to deal with, because at the moment it has become warm and soon hundreds of thousands of people will want to migrate to Europe. And Donald Tusk and his team, despite recently arguing that they are against migration, are unlikely to oppose the influx of foreigners into Poland. That's why the upcoming presidential elections are so important. The only dam to stop this illegal emigration, to realistically reject the Migration Pact, which will limit the security of Poland and limit the security of Poles, is for Karol Nawrocki to become president. He says clearly the Migration Pact must be rejected, because a president who will agree with the policies pursued by the current government means an increase in migration to our country, the official one and the unofficial one from Berlin.
A new global conflict is on the horizon. It's boiling over between India and Pakistan. For now, it's mostly threats, but shots have continued to fire on the border for days. This could be the beginning of a full-scale war.
A lot of activities going on and anything could happen, so we are getting ready and prepared for it anyway. And these few days, are, as I said, are very important.
The pretext for the escalation of a conflict that has been going on for nearly 80 years, when the two countries gained independence, was a terrorist attack a few days ago. 26 people were killed in the deadliest attack in Indian Kashmir in 2 decades. India accused Pakistan of supporting the militants. I assure you that the government of India will get to all those responsible for the attack on our people, and the principals who dare to raise their hand against us will also be bitterly regretted. Kashmir is a disputed region divided between India and Pakistan. There have been clashes, conflicts, and mutual recriminations here for decades. It's a fight for land, for influence, but also for access to water, which in this region of the world, with its extreme heat, is often at the price of life.
There's growing concern among the international community that the situation could get even more out of hand. The US, the UN have called for de-escalation and restraint.
It is already very dangerous on the border between the two countries. Shots are heard. Pakistanis are fleeing India, and Indians are fleeing Pakistan. Both countries have closed their airspace to enemy aircraft. The role of the mediator is taken over by the Americans.
Regarding the Kashmir situation, India and Pakistan, that he said we are reaching out to both parties. And telling, of course, them to not escalate the situation. The Secretary expects to speak with the foreign ministers of Pakistan and India as early as today or tomorrow. He is encouraging other national leaders, other foreign ministers, to also reach out to the countries on this issue.
Although these are distant countries and a remote region from both Europe and the United States, the bad news is that both countries have nuclear weapons. And if only for that reason, one cannot remain indifferent to what is happening in this unstable region of the world. These are countries that have nuclear weapons, which they could use as a last resort. In addition, both Pakistan and India have announced from the very beginning that they want to have nuclear weapons, precisely as a way to scare off the other country. And now, why is this situation dangerous for the United States as well? Because the U.S., with both one country and the other, has relatively good relations. Pakistan is geostrategically important to the Americans, having enabled them, for example, to intervene militarily in Afghanistan. India, on the other hand, is a gigantic market that is natural competition for China, and yet Beijing is Washington's economic rival. A war between India and Pakistan would thwart Donald Trump's plans to form a coalition of countries in the region to help the Americans stop Chinese expansion.
India's coming along great. I think we'll have a deal with India. The Prime Minister, as you know, was here 3 weeks ago, and they want to make a deal. We'll see what happens.
The U.S. administration hopes that, as in the case of Ukraine, a good offer of cooperation will convince India and Pakistan to bury the hatchet of war.
This is a turning point in negotiations and a very clear message to the Kremlin. Ukraine and the United States have signed the minerals deal, while also establishing a fund for the reconstruction of the war-ravaged country. In doing so, the White House sent an unambiguous message to Moscow, especially since the question of Washington's continued participation in these negotiations is still open. Putin is doing his best to dispel optimism about the outcome of the Washington-Moscow-Kyiv talks. 2 people were killed, 19 wounded, this time in Odessa. A Russian drone attack occurred, hitting apartment blocks in a neighborhood of single-family homes. At the White House, patience has run out. It's hard to speak of negotiations and peace deals when rockets and drones continue to fall on Ukrainian cities day after day.
We are now at a time where concrete proposals need to be delivered by the 2 parties on how to end this conflict. How we proceed from here is a decision that belongs now to the President. If there is not progress, we will step back as mediators in this process.
Ukraine has already presented its proposal for ending the conflict. It has much in common with Trump's own proposal. The next step was to be taken by Moscow, but so far, there has been no breakthrough. Nay, there are growing suspicions that the Russians are preparing for a new offensive.
Look at Belarus. Russia is preparing something there this summer, using military drills as cover. And that's usually how they start a new attack. But where will it go? I don't know. Ukraine, Lithuania, Poland, God bless, no. We all need to be ready.
Ukraine, however, is playing a multi-level diplomatic game. In parallel with talks on a possible ceasefire, it has come to an agreement with the Americans on the final version of the minerals deal.
Today's agreement signals clearly to Russian leadership that the Trump administration is committed to a peace process centered on a free, sovereign, and prosperous Ukraine over the long term. It's time for this cruel and senseless war to end. The killing must stop, and both the United States and the government of Ukraine look forward to quickly operationalizing this historic economic partnership for both the Ukrainian and American people.
What does this mean in practice? It means that the Americans are entering the Ukrainian minerals market, and consequently, American capital is being allocated there. It is hard to imagine Washington tolerating any threats to its business coming from Russia.
There is a lot more to come, and that has to be done on the ground. But yes, responding to your question, generally, as for now, it is perceived as a win for Ukraine.
There are also many indications that not much will change in terms of the ceasefire talks, with the Americans likely to pull out of the negotiations. The question is whether or not, with economic relations with Kyiv tightening, Washington will decide to support Ukraine with arms and ammunition supplies, while significantly changing its rhetoric toward the Kremlin, swapping the diplomatic carrot for the military stick.
The future of spacecraft propulsion is expected to be electric and fueled by metal, according to MagDrive, a UK startup developing a lightweight thruster poised to transform satellite maneuverability. MagDrive's Rogue thruster is a pulsed plasma propulsion system that uses solid metal propellant and stores energy in onboard supercapacitors. Weighing just 2.5 kilograms, it is designed for compact satellite applications.
It works by drawing in energy from the satellite solar panels. It stores that up internally in our onboard supercapacitors, and then it discharges all of that power very rapidly through a pulse power system and high voltage generator here, which gets put into our metal propellant and ejected through our plasma accelerator out this way in a stream of plasma bullets, which pushes the satellite that way.
It is designed to allow spacecraft to maneuver close to each other in low Earth orbit with increased power and accuracy and a fuel supply that will last far longer than traditional liquid fuels.
That means that we can open up entirely new capabilities and services for satellites to maneuver without regret and to go to entirely new orbits than they could before.
The company says a step change in maneuverability will not just allow space operations to continue in an increasingly congested low Earth orbit, but herald a new era of science, research and manufacturing. In June 2025, MagDrive will test its rogue thruster in orbit aboard a D-orbit mission, a critical step toward validating its high-thrust metal-fueled propulsion in microgravity, with 2 thrusters deployed on D-orbit's ION satellite carrier, a space logistics platform to deliver satellites to precise orbits and enable in-orbit services over a 6-month mission. MagDrive says it has plans for a more powerful thruster that can be refueled in space, potentially providing significantly extended propulsion capability.